Marcus Kane adjusted his worn leather jacket as he stepped off the transport shuttle onto Station Nexus 7, the sprawling interstellar hub that served as a neutral meeting ground for dozens of alien species. The artificial gravity felt lighter than Earth standard, making each step feel like a gentle bounce. After 30 years of military service and 5 years of retirement, he still carried himself with the disciplined posture of a soldier, though his graying hair and weathered face showed the passage of time. The station buzzed with activity as beings from across the galaxy conducted business, traded goods, and negotiated treaties. Marcus had come here on a simple mission: to collect payment for a private security consultation he'd provided to a mining corporation. The job had been straightforward, nothing like the high-stakes operations he'd run during his days with Earth's Special Operations Command, but it paid well enough to keep his small apartment on the outer colonies comfortable. As he made his way through the central marketplace, Marcus couldn't help but notice the stares. Humans were still relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Most species treated them with curiosity or indifference, but there were always those who viewed humanity's rapid expansion with suspicion or outright hostility. The Zephyrians were one such species. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline skin that refracted light into rainbow patterns, they considered themselves the most advanced civilization in this sector. Their military, the Zephyrian hegemony, had controlled trade routes and enforced their version of order for over 1,000 years before humans arrived on the scene. Marcus was studying a map display, trying to locate the offices of Meridian Mining Corp., when he felt a heavy hand clamp down on his shoulder. The grip was strong enough to crack bone, and he turned slowly to face 3 Zephyrian soldiers in their distinctive silver armor. The largest of the 3, his rank insignia marking him as a squadron commander, sneered down at Marcus with eyes that glowed like blue fire. Well, well, what do we have here? A little human lost and wandering where he doesn't belong. Marcus kept his expression neutral, a skill honed through decades of dealing with hostile situations. Just trying to find an office. No trouble intended. The commander laughed, a sound like breaking glass. No trouble intended. You humans are trouble just by existing. Do you know how many trade disputes we've had to settle since your species crawled out of their little corner of space? How many shipping routes you've disrupted with your primitive ships and reckless navigation? The other 2 soldiers flanked Marcus, cutting off potential escape routes. Not that he was planning to run, but old habits died hard. He recognized the formation from his analysis of Zephyrian military tactics during his active duty years. I'm not here on behalf of any government or corporation, Marcus said calmly. Just personal business. Personal business? The commander's crystalline features twisted into what might have been a smile. Let me guess. Another human trying to play at being important, making deals with real civilizations like you matter. A small crowd was beginning to gather, various alien species watching the confrontation with interest. Some looked concerned, others appeared entertained by the spectacle. Marcus noticed a family of Etherians, their translucent blue forms shimmering with anxiety, hurrying their children away from the scene. The commander stepped closer, his imposing height forcing Marcus to look up. I think you need to learn some respect, human. Your species needs to understand their place in the order of things. Without warning, the Zephyrian to Marcus's left shoved him hard, sending him stumbling into a nearby vendor stall. Fruits from a dozen worlds scattered across the floor as the elderly Krillian merchant chittered in distress. Marcus caught himself against the stall's frame, his military training keeping him balanced despite the unexpected assault. Oops, the soldier said with mock concern. Clumsy little human. Maybe you should stick to your own kind instead of wandering around where you don't belong. Marcus straightened slowly, brushing off his jacket. His hands moved with deliberate calm. But those who knew how to read body language might have noticed the subtle shift in his stance, the way his weight settled on the balls of his feet. "You're going to compensate this merchant for the damaged goods," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. The commander threw back his head and laughed. "Is the little human giving us orders now? This is rich. What are you going to do if we don't?" "File a complaint with station security?" "Something like that," Marcus replied. The second soldier, apparently tired of the verbal sparring, reached out to grab Marcus by the front of his jacket. It was exactly the opening Marcus had been waiting for. In one fluid motion that seemed almost casual to observers, Marcus caught the Zephyrian's wrist, twisted it at an angle that exploited the species' joint structure, and used the alien's own momentum to send him crashing into the opposite wall. The soldier's crystalline skin cracked where he impacted, and he slumped to the ground with a groan that sounded like grinding minerals. The marketplace fell silent. The commander stared at his fallen subordinate, then back at Marcus, his glowing eyes narrowing. "You dare assault a Zephyrian soldier?" "I defended myself against an unprovoked attack," Marcus corrected. "Station security cameras will back that up." The third soldier reached for his weapon, but Marcus was already moving. 20 years of special operations had taught him to read intent in an enemy's posture, and he'd seen the decision to escalate forming in the alien's body language seconds before the creature acted. Marcus's hand shot out in a precise strike to a pressure point he'd learned about during his briefings on Zephyrian anatomy. The soldier's arm went numb, and his weapon clattered to the floor. A follow-up strike to the creature's solar plexus equivalent dropped him to his knees, gasping for air. The commander was fast for his size, drawing his sidearm with practiced speed. But Marcus had already closed the distance between them, moving inside the weapon's effective range before the Zephyrian could bring it to bear. A swift elbow strike to the nerve cluster at the base of the commander's neck sent waves of paralysis through his arm, and the weapon joined its companion on the floor. What happened next took less than 10 seconds, but it would be replayed on station security footage for years to come. Marcus systematically dismantled the commander's aggressive posture with a series of precise strikes and joint manipulations that showcased not just his training, but his intimate knowledge of Zephyrian physiology and combat doctrine. The commander found himself face down on the station floor, his arm twisted behind his back in a restraint hold that made any movement agonizing. His two subordinates were similarly incapacitated, groaning and unable to rise. "Now," Marcus said conversationally, not even breathing heavily, "about that compensation for the merchant." The commander struggled briefly, then stopped as Marcus applied just enough pressure to remind him of his position. You can't do this to us. We are Zephyrian hegemony officers." "You were Zephyrian officers who assaulted a civilian and destroyed private property," Marcus corrected. "Station law applies to everyone equally, regardless of species or rank." The crowd had grown larger, and Marcus could see beings from a dozen different worlds watching with expressions ranging from shock to admiration. He could also see station security approaching, their mixed species team moving with professional efficiency through the crowd. As the security officers arrived and began to assess the situation, Marcus calmly explained what had happened. The Krillian merchant, still trembling from the excitement, corroborated his account. Several other witnesses stepped forward to confirm that the Zephyrians had initiated the confrontation. The security chief, a massive Draknari whose reptilian features remained impassive, reviewed the footage from his portable scanner. After a few minutes, he looked up at Marcus with what might have been respect in his cold yellow eyes. "Clean work," the Draknari said simply. "No excessive force, textbook self-defense. The Zephyrians will face charges for assault and destruction of property." As the three soldiers were helped to their feet and led away in energy restraints, the commander turned back to Marcus. "This isn't over, human. The hegemony doesn't forget." Marcus met his gaze steadily. Neither do I. After giving his statement to station security, Marcus helped the Krillian merchant clean up the scattered produce. The elderly alien's compound eyes glistened with gratitude as he repeatedly thanked Marcus in his chittering language. Several other merchants in the area nodded approvingly as Marcus passed their stalls. As he finally made his way toward the Meridian mining offices, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was just the beginning. He'd seen that look in the commander's eyes before, usually in enemies who viewed a defeat not as a lesson to be learned, but as an insult to be avenged. But Marcus Kane hadn't survived 30 years of military service by backing down from threats. If the Zephyrians wanted to escalate this situation, they would discover that, retired or not, some humans were far more dangerous than they appeared. The crowd gradually dispersed, but the whispered conversations continued. Word of the human who had single-handedly defeated 3 Zephyrian soldiers spread quickly through the station's communication networks. Some called it an impressive display of skill, others worried about the diplomatic implications. Deep in the Zephyrian sector of the station, emergency communications were already being sent to the Hegemony High Command. The reputation of human military capabilities had been largely theoretical up to this point, based on second-hand reports and intelligence estimates. Now they had first-hand evidence that even a single human, past his prime and supposedly retired, could be a formidable opponent. The implications were troubling for a species that had built their power on military superiority and the assumption that other races would naturally defer to their strength. Marcus reached the mining corporation's offices and conducted his business with professional efficiency, collecting his payment and declining an offer for future work. He preferred to keep his consulting job simple these days, nothing that would require him to leave his quiet life on the frontier colonies. But as he prepared to catch the next transport off Station Nexus 7, Marcus had the distinct feeling that his quiet retirement was about to become significantly more complicated. 3 weeks after the incident on Station Nexus 7, Marcus Kane was enjoying a peaceful morning on his small homestead on the frontier world of Kepler's Rest. The planet was beautiful in its simplicity, with rolling hills covered in purple grass and twin suns that painted the sky in brilliant oranges and reds during sunrise. He'd chosen this world specifically for its isolation and the fact that very few non-humans ever visited. Marcus was repairing the fence around his small garden when his communication terminal chimed with an incoming message. The device was military-grade, a parting gift from his old unit, and it rarely received calls unless something important was happening. The holographic display activated, showing the weathered face of Admiral Sarah Chen, his former commanding officer and one of the few people who knew where to find him. "Marcus, we need to talk," she said without preamble. "The Zephyrian hegemony has filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council about your little demonstration on Nexus 7. Marcus set down his tools and walked over to the terminal. "What kind of complaint?" "They're claiming you used excessive force against their officers and that humans pose a threat to galactic stability. They want you extradited to face charges in their court system." Marcus snorted. "Their officers assaulted me and destroyed merchant property. Station security footage backs up everything." "I know that, and so does the Council. But the Zephyrians are pushing hard on this. They've got allies who are already nervous about human expansion, and they're using this incident to build a coalition." The Admiral's expression grew more serious. "There's more, Marcus. Intelligence suggests they're planning something beyond political maneuvering. We've intercepted communications indicating they might try to take you by force." "Let them try," Marcus replied calmly. "This isn't a joke. The Zephyrians have dispatched a military vessel to your sector. It's currently 3 days out from Kepler's Rest." Marcus felt the familiar calm settle over him that always came when a situation shifted from political to tactical. "What's the ship classification?" "Heavy cruiser, Eternal Glory. Crew of 200, including a full company of their elite guard. They're not coming for tea and conversation." Recommendations? Admiral Chen leaned forward. Officially, Earth Command advises you to turn yourself into human authorities for protective custody while we sort this out diplomatically. And unofficially? A slight smile crossed the Admiral's face. Unofficially, I remember what happened the last time someone underestimated Marcus Kane. The Zarathi Rebellion learned that lesson the hard way. Marcus nodded. The Zarathi campaign had been one of his most challenging assignments, requiring him to operate alone behind enemy lines for 6 months while gathering intelligence on their military capabilities. He'd not only survived, but had managed to eliminate their entire command structure in a series of precisely executed operations. "I'll need some equipment," Marcus said. "Already arranged. There's a supply cache buried 2 kilometers north of your location, coordinates 34.7 by 18.2. Authorization code Ghost Protocol." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You've been planning for this contingency." "I've been planning for a lot of contingencies. The galaxy's a dangerous place for humans these days, and we can't always rely on diplomacy." After ending the call with Admiral Chen, Marcus spent the rest of the day preparing. The supply cache contained everything he'd expected: advanced surveillance equipment, tactical gear, weapons that weren't supposed to exist according to various galactic treaties, and most importantly, detailed intelligence files on Zephyrian military doctrine and ship specifications. That evening, as the twin suns set behind the hills, Marcus sat on his porch, cleaning a modified plasma rifle while reviewing the technical specifications of the approaching cruiser. The Eternal Glory was a formidable vessel, designed for both space combat and planetary assault. Its crew included some of the hegemony's best soldiers, veterans of dozens of campaigns across the galaxy. On the second day, Marcus began implementing his defensive strategy. The beauty of Kepler's Rest was its deceptively simple terrain. What looked like empty hills and valleys to most observers was actually a complex network of natural choke points and defensive positions for someone who knew how to read the land. He spent hours setting up sensor networks and defensive positions, using techniques he'd learned during the siege of Vega Prime. The key to defeating a superior force was never to meet them head-on, but to control the battlefield and force them to fight on your terms. On the morning of the third day, Marcus's long-range sensors detected the arrival of the Eternal Glory in the outer system. The massive ship held position near the edge of Kepler's Rest's gravity well, probably scanning the planet and planning their approach. Marcus activated his communication system and sent a message on standard diplomatic frequencies. "Zephyrian vessel, Eternal Glory. This is Marcus Kane. I'm aware of your presence and the charges you wish to bring against me. I'm willing to discuss this matter, but any attempt to take me by force will be met with appropriate resistance." The response came an hour later, transmitted on a wide beam that was clearly intended for him to intercept. The holographic image showed Fleet Commander Zarthek, the same Zephyrian from the station encounter, though now he wore the elaborate ceremonial armor of a high-ranking officer. "Human Kane," Zarthek's voice carried barely controlled rage. "You will surrender yourself immediately or face the consequences. The hegemony does not negotiate with criminals." "Interesting," Marcus replied. "I wasn't aware that defending oneself against assault was a crime under Zephyrian law." "You humiliated hegemony officers in front of inferior species. You will pay for this insult." Marcus could see the real motivation now. This wasn't about justice or galactic stability. This was about pride and the Zephyrian need to maintain their image of invincibility. They couldn't allow word to spread that a single human had defeated 3 of their soldiers without breaking a sweat. "Counter-proposal," Marcus said. "You leave my system, file an accurate report about what actually happened on Nexus 7, and we forget this ever occurred." Zarthek's crystalline features twisted with fury. "You dare negotiate from a position of weakness? You are one human on an isolated world, facing the might of a hegemony battlecruiser." "I'm one human who knows exactly what he's capable of," Marcus corrected. Last chance to reconsider. The transmission ended abruptly, and Marcus's sensors immediately detected multiple craft launching from the cruiser. 12 assault shuttles, each carrying a squad of elite Zephyrian soldiers, were descending toward the planet's surface. Marcus smiled grimly as he activated his defensive systems. The Zephyrians were about to learn why human special forces had earned such a fearsome reputation during the recent conflicts with various alien factions. The first lesson would be about the danger of underestimating an opponent based on numerical superiority alone. As the shuttles entered the atmosphere, Marcus tracked their approach vectors from his concealed command post in the hills overlooking his homestead. The Zephyrians were using standard assault doctrine, probably expecting to overwhelm a single human through sheer numbers and superior firepower. They had no idea that Marcus had spent the last 3 days turning the entire valley into a carefully orchestrated kill zone. The lead shuttles touched down in the flat area near his house, deploying their troops in textbook formation. Marcus watched through his scoped rifle as the soldiers advanced in disciplined ranks toward his seemingly defenseless home. The first explosive charge detonated exactly as planned, taking out the point squad and sending crystalline body parts flying across the purple grass. The Zephyrians immediately went to ground, their training kicking in as they sought cover and tried to identify the source of the attack. Marcus was already moving to his second position, a concealed firing point 300 meters to the east. The beauty of his defensive plan was that each position covered the others, creating overlapping fields of fire that would force the attackers to expose themselves no matter which way they moved. The second charge eliminated another squad as they tried to flank his original position. By now, the Zephyrians realized they were facing more than just a frightened human civilian. Orders were being shouted in their musical language as they attempted to coordinate a proper tactical response. Marcus picked off the squad leader who was trying to organize the retreat, his modified plasma rifle punching through the alien's armor at 800 meters. The Zephyrians had excellent equipment and training, but they were fighting an enemy who had studied their tactics for decades and knew exactly how to exploit their weaknesses. What followed was a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. For the next 6 hours, Marcus systematically dismantled the Zephyrian assault force using a combination of guerrilla tactics, superior knowledge of the terrain, and the element of surprise. Every time the aliens thought they had pinpointed his location, they found empty air and carefully placed booby traps. Every time they tried to establish a defensive perimeter, Marcus struck from an unexpected angle with devastating precision. By sunset, only 3 of the original 144 soldiers remained alive, and they had barricaded themselves inside their damaged shuttle, calling desperately for extraction. Fleet Commander Zarthek's face appeared on Marcus's communication system, his earlier arrogance replaced by barely controlled fury and something that might have been fear. "Impossible," he snarled. "No single being could defeat an entire assault force." Marcus appeared on his own transmission, sitting calmly in his kitchen and sipping coffee, as if he hadn't just spent the day systematically destroying an elite military unit. "Your soldiers fought bravely," he said. "Unfortunately, they were trained to fight conventional enemies, not someone who's been studying Zephyrian tactics for longer than most of them have been alive. This changes nothing. I have an entire ship's worth of soldiers. And I have an entire planet's worth of defensive positions," Marcus replied calmly. "How many more of your people do you want to sacrifice for your wounded pride?" The transmission ended, but Marcus could see the cruiser's weapons powering up on his sensors. If Zarthek couldn't take him alive, he might decide to eliminate the problem permanently by bombarding the planet from orbit. That would be a mistake for reasons the fleet commander was about to discover. Fleet Commander Zarthek stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, his crystalline hands gripping the command rail as he stared at the tactical display showing Kepler's rest below. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, its purple vegetation and scattered clouds giving no hint of the carnage that had occurred on its surface. "Sir," his tactical officer reported nervously, "we've lost all contact with the surface teams. Long-range scans show no life signs in the landing zone." Zarthek's internal luminescence flickered with rage. An entire company of the hegemony's finest soldiers, eliminated by a single human. It was inconceivable, yet the evidence was undeniable. The implications for Zephyrian military superiority were staggering. "Charge the main batteries," he commanded. "If we cannot take the human alive, we will ensure he never humiliates another hegemony officer." "Sir," the weapons officer hesitated, "orbital bombardment of an inhabited world violates several galactic treaties. The Council will understand that we were dealing with a terrorist threat." Zarthek cut him off. "Prepare to fire." Unknown to the Zephyrian commander, his decision to escalate to orbital bombardment had triggered a series of events that Marcus Kane had set in motion decades earlier. The supply cache provided by Admiral Chen contained more than just weapons and surveillance equipment. Hidden among the standard gear was a single data chip marked with the insignia of Earth's Strategic Defense Initiative. When Marcus activated the chip, it sent a priority signal to a network of automated defense platforms that Earth had secretly deployed throughout human-controlled space. These platforms, disguised as mining stations and communication relays, had been waiting dormant for exactly this kind of situation. The closest platform to Kepler's Rest was Station Echo 7, officially listed as a deep space research facility studying cosmic radiation. In reality, it housed one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets, a weapon system based on technology recovered from the extinct progenitor civilization. As the Eternal Glory prepared to bombard the planet below, Station Echo 7's true nature revealed itself. Layers of camouflage fell away to expose a massive particle accelerator array that had been charging for the past 3 hours. On the bridge of the Zephyrian cruiser, alarms suddenly began blaring. "Sir! Unknown energy signature detected bearing 127 Mark 15. It's massive." Zarthek turned to see his sensor operator's face pale with shock. "What are you talking about?" "Sir, there's a weapons platform out there. It just appeared on our sensors. Energy readings are off the scale." Through the bridge's main viewport, they could see a brilliant point of light growing brighter in the distance. What had looked like empty space moments before now revealed a structure nearly as large as their own ship, bristling with technology that registered as completely unknown to their tactical computers. Marcus's voice crackled over their communication system, calm and unhurried. "Fleet Commander Zarthek, I strongly advise you to stand down your weapons." "How did you—" Zarthek began, then stopped himself. "What is that thing?" "Insurance," Marcus replied. "Did you really think Earth would let its citizens wander the galaxy without some form of protection? You're currently in the crosshairs of a weapons system that could crack your ship open like an egg." The tactical display updated as their computers attempted to analyze the unknown platform. The energy readings were indeed staggering, showing power levels that exceeded anything in the Zephyrian arsenal. "Impossible. No human technology could—" "You're right," Marcus interrupted. "It's not entirely human technology. We learned a lot from studying progenitor ruins. Turns out the galaxy's previous masters left behind some very interesting toys." The implications hit Zarthek like a physical blow. The progenitors had been the most advanced civilization in galactic history, their technology so far beyond current understanding that even fragments of their devices were considered priceless artifacts. If humans had somehow weaponized progenitor technology. "You're bluffing," Zarthek said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Would you like me to demonstrate?" Marcus asked pleasantly. "I could target one of your weapon arrays. Non-fatal, but it would definitely ruin your day." The weapon platform's energy signature spiked, and the Eternal Glory's shields automatically activated as their proximity alarms screamed warnings. Whatever that thing was preparing to fire, their ship's computer systems were treating it as an extinction-level threat. "Sir," the tactical officer whispered urgently, "recommend immediate withdrawal. Our shields won't stop whatever that thing is charging up." Zarthek's mind raced through the possibilities. If he retreated now, he would return to Zephyrian space having lost an entire assault company and been forced to withdraw by a single human and a mysterious weapons platform. The damage to hegemony prestige would be catastrophic, but if he stayed and fought, he might lose his entire ship and crew against a weapon system that his computers couldn't even properly analyze. Either way, his career was probably over. "There has to be another option," he muttered. Marcus seemed to read his thoughts. "Actually, there is. You could try telling the truth for once." "What do you mean?" "File an accurate report about what happened on Station Nexus 7. Your officers assaulted a human civilian, destroyed merchant property, and got exactly what they deserved when they tried to escalate the situation. No politics, no spin, just facts." The Hegemony Council would never accept such a report. "Then maybe it's time for the Hegemony to learn that the galaxy has changed," Marcus replied. "You're not the only advanced military power anymore. Humanity has been studying, learning, and preparing while you've been resting on past glory." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems and the occasional beep from the tactical display. Zarthek stared at the growing energy signature of the weapon platform and realized he was facing a choice between personal humiliation and potential annihilation. "If I file an accurate report," he said finally, "will you guarantee safe passage for my ship and crew?" "Absolutely. In fact, I'll throw in some free advice. Tell your superiors that humanity is willing to coexist peacefully with the Zephyrian hegemony, but we won't tolerate being bullied or intimidated." Zarthek looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. These were good soldiers who deserved to return home to their families, not die in a pointless battle over his wounded pride. "Stand down, weapons," he ordered quietly. "All stations prepare for departure." "A wise choice," Marcus said. "And, Commander, the next time you encounter a human, remember that appearances can be deceiving. What looks like weakness might actually be restraint." As the Eternal Glory powered down its weapons and began moving away from Kepler's rest, Zarthek couldn't help but feel that this encounter had changed everything. The hegemony had built its power on the assumption that they possessed superior military technology and training. Today, a single human had shattered that assumption completely. 3 days later, Marcus received another communication from Admiral Chen. She appeared on his terminal with an expression of barely contained amusement. "Well, that was subtle," she said. Marcus shrugged. "They started it. I just finished it. The Zephyrian hegemony has filed a formal complaint about the weapons platform. They're claiming humans violated the Progenitor Technology Restriction Treaty." "Are we going to deny it?" "Officially, Station Echo 7 is a deep space research facility studying cosmic radiation. Any resemblance to a weapons platform is purely coincidental." Marcus grinned. "And unofficially?" "Unofficially, the Zephyrians seem to have gotten the message. Fleet Commander Zarthek filed an accurate report about the Nexus 7 incident, and the Hegemony Council has quietly dropped their extradition request." "What about the soldiers who died here?" Admiral Chen's expression grew more serious. "Listed as casualties during a training exercise. The Hegemony isn't eager to admit they lost an entire company to a single human." Marcus nodded. It was a face-saving measure that would allow both sides to move forward without further escalation. "Any word on broader implications?" "Several alien governments have been asking pointed questions about human military capabilities. The Draknari Empire has requested a formal meeting to discuss mutual defense agreements. The Catherian Confederacy wants to negotiate new trade terms. And the Council? The Galactic Council is pretending nothing happened, but 3 different species have quietly reached out about defense partnerships. It seems everyone wants to be friends with the humans who have progenitor weapons. After ending the call, Marcus walked out to his porch and looked up at the evening sky. Somewhere up there, Station Echo 7 had returned to its disguise as a harmless research facility. The weapon that had convinced an entire Zephyrian battle group to withdraw was once again hidden among the stars. The galaxy had indeed changed, though most of its inhabitants didn't realize it yet. Humanity was no longer the newest, weakest member of the galactic community. They had become a power to be respected, feared, and courted by those wise enough to recognize the shift. But for Marcus Kane, retired Special Forces veteran, it was just another day of protecting human interests and ensuring that bullies learned appropriate lessons. He settled into his chair with a cup of coffee and a good book, confident that his quiet retirement could continue undisturbed, at least until the next time someone mistook human restraint for weakness. 3 weeks later, the first diplomatic envoys began arriving at human space stations throughout the sector. The message was clear. The galaxy wanted to negotiate with the species that had somehow weaponized progenitor technology and hidden it so effectively that no one had detected it until it was too late. What none of them realized was that Station Echo 7 was just one of dozens of similar facilities scattered throughout human space. Admiral Chen's Strategic Defense Initiative had been preparing for this day since humanity first ventured beyond their home system. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted, and it had happened so quietly that most species were still catching up to the new reality. The age of human expansion through diplomacy and trade was ending. The age of human expansion through strength and respect had begun. And somewhere on a quiet frontier world, Marcus Kane continued tending his garden, secure in the knowledge that sometimes the best way to ensure peace was to be prepared for war.